everyone. It's a Monday. Time for Monday Movie Talk, MMT, or what we call Versus. Today on the show, Dune Part 2. We have an all-star lineup of guests today to talk about Dune Part 2. They have all seen the movie at a special fan screening, and they're going to be joining me today. So let's get things started. Let's kick things off. It's Versus on a Monday. So let's go. Here we are. Come on.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh, let's put this away.
Don't be sorry for anything.
Usually leg goes down.
There. That's awesome, Rob. That's awesome.
You're right. It's intimidating.
It's okay. I got the ornithopter. I also got the Lego ornithopter.
Lego.
And very intimidating.
Nice.
Look at the instruction manual.
Whoa.
It's ginormous.
Wow.
It's insane. It's crazy.
It's truly insane.
Well, we got a big show today, so we're going to do intros real quick. Please plug your channels, plug anything you want to plug, and then we're going to get right into Dune Part 2 because everyone here has seen it. So let's start. It's my partner in crime. There he is, Ing the Merciless, Alan Ing.
Alan Ing from Film Thread, everything Film Thread. And spoiler alert, all the Asians in Doom are now dead.
Oh, here we go.
Hey, it's Bon Iyer on Instagram, where I post everything I do in commercials and music videos as a director. And I also have a podcast called Here's My Theory, where we do deep dives into crazy film theories, referencing a ton of obscure films with some laughs along the way. And that's so Here's My Theory can be found on the Art of Story channel, YouTube channel with my friend Adam Argo.
Nice. And some people call you a POC director. Do you know what I call you? Director. I just call you
Yes.
Director. I think that's the appropriate way to do that. And here he is. Everyone loves him. Lofty Pixels. He's homophobic. He's a homophobic person, which means he doesn't like hobos, apparently. I have no idea. I just dropped that terrible joke.
I just have something to say, Chris.
Okay, let's hear it.
I want to say, may your blade chip and shatter. It's pronounced Harkonnen. It's pronounced Harkonnen, by the way, everybody. It's not Harkonnen, you absolute miserable swines. I'm sorry. I'm
You
sorry.
need to tell David Lynch that.
Yes.
And here he is, Jeffrey Modib Harris. Hey, Jeff, how's it going?
I am the J to the E to the double F-ry, Jeffrey Harris, 411 Mania Tomato Meter approved critic. And just something I wanted to share really quick before we get started. To begin your study of the life of Muad'Dib, then, take care that you first place him in his time. Born in the 57th year of the Padishah Emperor Shaddam IV, and take the most special care that you locate Muad'Dib in his place, the planet Arrakis. Do not be deceived by the fact that he was born on Caladan and lived his first 15 years there. Arrakis, the planet known as Dune, is forever his place. From Manual of Muad'Dib by the Princess Erelon. From Doom by Frank Herbert. Thank you.
All right. And then here she is. She's a Fremen in the streets, but a Bene Gesserit in the sheets.
Ooh.
Wow. It's true.
I like
It's
that.
true. The rumors are true. I am on YouTube, known as Comic Book Girl 19. I do a lot of deep dive discussions, and I'm going to be putting up my Dune review in the next few days, Dune 2 review. And you can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at DanicaXIX.
And also, Danica, you forgot to mention that the show today is sponsored by Lip Balm Spice Melange. It's CBD lip balm that you sell on your website. What's the website where people can get. I'm addicted to this.
It's really good. It's really good lip balm. It's danicaxix.bigcartel.com. And also, if you are interested in reading Dune for the first time, it's a tough book to get through. And so I have done not one, not two, not three, but 6 Dune clubs, reading all of 6 Frank Herbert's original Dune books with the internet. You can find those on my YouTube channel. So if you want to, I can get you safely across the sands of Arrakis. So come join Dune Club.
Nice. And our next contestant here is RMB, the RMB, He
Woo!
needs no introduction. Amen.
Well, hello. I'm on loan from the Burnett Work today, and you can find me there on YouTube. The Burnett Work. It's like a network, but with my name. So yeah, just do all kinds of stuff. I'm going to do an an episode about Dune tonight, and Denis Villeneuve's comments on cinema itself, which I think he's much more qualified than I am to opine on. But I don't have him on the show, so you're just going to have me.
Nice. All right. And then here he is, the Latino slant. Paulie is here. Where'd you go, Paulie?
Hey, what's happening, everybody?
All right. Cool. Paulie, you're going to give us it's a very high cracker count if we're going to be if you were counting or keeping score.
Well, since you brought it up, the Latino slant is a cracker-free safe zone to all crackers who want to come and hang out at the slant, except for Lofty Pixels.
Oh no!
Any cracker.
Wow.
I'm
Any
cracker.
cracker but the Lofty cracker.
I'll
cracker.
chip and shatter your cracker. How about that?
Yeah. Well, we're just
Cracker
getting
going
warmed
on.
up, buddy.
All right. So here we
I don't
go.
know, hey, everybody.
All right. Okay. I
What's
think
that
it's
sound
time.
effect?
I think
Oh,
it's time.
geez.
I think it's time we get going.
I forgot to put my YouTube channel in. That can I just tell everybody to go to Lofty Pixels
All
on
right.
YouTube?
Okay. Yeah. So what's your YouTube channel, Lofty?
Lofty Pixels on YouTube. This week is Dune. Next week is Final Fantasy. If you're a nerd, if you're a gaming nerd, that's what we're diving into next week. So, but Dune, yeah, Lofty Pixels on YouTube. We just do gaming and movie stuff.
All right. We have 9 folks here. We will have a 10th joining us late because we're going to have more Asian representation. Alan, I saw Alan smile from his murder room, which was Alan's on the set of the new season of Dexter, apparently.
That's
So,
right.
There you
It's
go.
the reboot. Yeah. We're all set up. Yeah, we're all ready to go.
It's great. That's where you carve up the dead bodies. All right. Let's go around everybody with your first impressions, and we'll just go around everyone. I mean, oh wait, I forgot. I'm sorry, Nerd Cookies. What am I saying?
Yeah,
I'm sorry,
like
Elaine.
Delaney.
My apologies.
Hi.
I'm
I was
sorry.
ready to talk about Dune. Yeah, I'm Nerd Cookies. You can call me Lane. Yeah, I have a sci-fi and fantasy news and lore channel on YouTube, and you can find me on Twitter and all the socials at Nerd Cookies. I'm excited to nerd out on Dune with all of this lovely esteemed panel. Thanks you for having me.
Nice. And I think Alan, you can take another note. Work on the intros because someone needs to do a better job at that. And that someone is, I think, me. So there you go. And Nerd Cookies, by the way, if you've not checked out her channel, she takes deep dives into Dune, really detailed. I really think we have 2 Dune scholars on here between Danica and Elaine that about covers that have all the best stuff on YouTube if you're looking for Dune coverage. But look, let's go around the horn, everyone, with your first impressions. You've heard, I think, what Alan and I have to say on Film Threat. Let's start, Danica, with you.
Ooh, in the hot seat. So I am a Dune purist. I'm an Orthodox Herbertian, and I really love the books. I'm a book nerd. So of course, like, I'm gonna have some issues because I'm just like, oh, I want it to be like the book. But at the same time, I understand that this is a movie. And so I ended up, I thought I was gonna not like this movie as much as I ended up liking this movie. And I was kind of surprised by it. I was like, wow, this isn't as disappointing as I thought it was going to be. There's definitely stuff that changes that I get because honestly, like every issue I have with this movie is like, it just needs to be a series and you just can't fit everything in. And you're trying to put 10 pounds of shit in a 5-pound bag. So you have to make some cuts. And some of the cuts that they made, I was like, wow, that's a really great workaround. I really agree with that. Some of the things that they did, I was like, I don't know about that. So overall, I definitely think everyone should go see it. I'm going to go see it again. I really enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun. There was stuff in there that was just like amazing, that blew my socks off. And there's also stuff in there that like totally frustrates me to no end.
All right. Well, we'll try to remain. We're going to remain spoiler free for the first half. Once we kick into spoilers, we'll do a warning. Lofty, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, spoiler free first half. That's what I told people on Twitter. So
Yeah.
here we go. Part 2 is better than part 1. That's my initial thought. I think the battles, character development, Arrakis world building, and the villains are all much better. And that's, yeah. Also, the book deviations personally don't bother me too much. I've read the book twice, and I'm pretty consistent about this. I don't necessarily care much about adherence to canon, one-to-one adaptations, as much as I've talked to some other people who do. It's just kind of how I approach movies. And I think if you combine the two, it's probably one of the best science fiction films ever made. I think you have to combine them though. It's essential because neither of them stand alone inherently. So those are my initial thoughts, but yeah.
All right, nerd cookies. We chatted this morning on Midnight's Edge of the Morning, and you're pretty tough on it.
Well, yeah, I wish I would have been able to see it again. Just have that weight of expectation off of me and just go and see the movie for what it was and enjoy it for what it was. But yeah, I had a lot of expectations from a book standpoint, but also from comments Denis Villeneuve had made that kind of built up my expectations. So I was a little let down by some things, but it is without a doubt an amazing grand scale epic. And of course, it's just made that much more amazing by Frank Herbert's amazing story, but also being able to be immersed in Arrakis in this form, this visual format. So they really accomplished that scale. So definitely see it in IMAX. But I have my nitpicks, of course, because I'm a dirty old book purist. But I think upon subsequent viewings again, just as like you reread Dune multiple times, you find something that you didn't discover before. So it's an amazing cinematic accomplishment.
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, Rob, R&B. We chatted for like 2 hours after the movie.
Yeah, we all did. I mean, my feeling about, first of all, books. I read these books. I am a Herbertian, I guess. I love that terminology that Danica used. I'd never thought of that before, but that's exactly what I am. To me, there are 6 Dune novels. There are spin-offs and other things that people have done, fan fiction, but there are 6 Herbertian Dune novels. I'd also recommend books like The White Plague and things like that, other books that Herbert wrote as well. But to me, this is the synthesis of what grand literary science fiction and the art form of cinema can be.
Yeah.
And we don't usually see that. We've seen it, I think, very few times in the history of cinema in terms of I would say that obviously Kubrick's 2001 is one of those things. And I just think that by definition, unfortunately, science fiction began as it came from the pulp eras, Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers, those serials, Méliès from the Earth to the Moon. I would say probably Fritz Lang's Metropolis was the first film that took literary ideas and gave them form. But in terms of this, I think this is the greatest science fiction movie ever made in terms of taking a literary property and combining it with the art of cinema, because, you can film somebody walking across a desert 10 different ways. The way Denis Villeneuve has Paul Atreides in some of these shots just walking at the camera with the sun in the background and the wind blowing. I mean, it transcends. It can only be done on the big screen. It can only be done cinematically. And the canvas that he's working on is so ambitious. And I dare say he's now made 4, although Dune 1 and 2 to me are really one movie. But he's made 4 or 3 of the great science fiction movies of all time, in Arrival, in Blade Runner 2049, and in Dune, at least in terms of his ambition and his ability to create scope and wonder.
And he's doing another one, Rendezvous with Rama.
Yeah, and if he's going to do it, because this is the kind of thing that when you're reading a science fiction novel, if you're a fan of, call it hard sci-fi or philosophical sci-fi, you dream or you envision when you're reading these books the way they look, the way Denis Villeneuve has put them on the screen. And we don't get that a lot. Right. And I don't think a lot of filmmakers are even capable of doing it. And I hope this, leads a pathway. I was saying today. I mean, whether it's Dan Simmons' Hyperion or whether it's take your Blindside. I'd love him to take a shot at Peter Watt's Blindside, which is one of my favorite hard science fiction novels. I would love to see more of this.
Mhm.
I was blown away by this, staggered. Is it perfect in terms of a book adaptation? No.
Oh no.
But I do think that it is a tremendous achievement.
All right. Ramesh.
I would ping off of what Lofty and Robert said. I agree. I think the second one's better than the first one. And I think from a directing standpoint, this is Denis' greatest hits. But I say that in a good way. I think all the films he's made up until this point have led him to this moment. I think combining the stark black and white and the horrors of Polytechnique. I think of the tragic, family tale of identity set in the Middle East from Incendies. I think of the abstract, fractured storytelling in Arrival and in Arrival and Enemy, and the brutality and the conflict you see in Sicario, and even that sort of cold technology in Blade Runner 2049. I mean, I think he had to do all those. And this is a bigger conversation than I think, Robert, you and I had last night about he did the work. He made the movies to eventually get awarded this film. And it's great. I was really impressed. And I would also say that I think it can live right alongside David Lynch's Dune. I think David Lynch's Dune is a great sort of cliff notes of Dune that you could watch and enjoy and still get everything out of this film.
Jeff Harris. Jeff, you and I have been friends for years. We have had an ongoing discussion that is across years that I think may have started with like the announcement that Dune was going to be made by Denis Villeneuve. And since then discovered that you're a Dune fan. And then here we are. So what are your thoughts?
Considering I was highly skeptical going back years ago that such an undertaking as this was even possible or doable on the big screen, I have to say Denis Villeneuve proved me wrong on that point.
Hi, guys.
Sorry. Kira Lynn just joined us, folks. Sorry.
Sorry
about that, Jeff.
I think this movie is about 7/8 one of the greatest sci-fi spectacles I've ever seen. But then there's just that 1/8 that just didn't work for me. And not just from the perspective of a book lover, cinematically, there's just this part of it that I found deeply unsatisfying and confusing. And part of it might be my youthful naivete about how much I love the book, but as a moviegoer, I also found this part very weird and unsatisfying. But
I think it's because you're an Astros fan. That's just my opinion.
I'm a very happy Astros fan.
I know you are. I know. I'm a Phillies fan.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, we're gonna get into it because after everybody gives their first impressions, I want to go around, and you could just be open. What did you love? What did you dislike? And I'm shocked that so many people have brought up the exact same thing that I had a problem with. Danica, you and I had a conversation about it last night. I will get into it, but Paulie, your initial thoughts.
Great on spectacle, weak on story, problems with some of the characters. Definitely more of a fan of the first one than the second one. After sleeping on it, more so now. I definitely want to see it again. Yeah, those are some of my thoughts. I mean, I don't want to give spoilers out, so it's like,
Gotcha. Not yet. Dante, from Verbal Riot Show, your impressions.
You know what, man? I stand by what I said last night. I loved it. I had time to sleep on it, and yeah, it wasn't a perfect movie. Definitely not. It has some pacing issues, especially in the beginning. But that aside, man, like I'm speaking as a normie, as someone who, I never read the books. I only saw the '80s movie once when I was younger. Personally, I always kind of wanted a Jodorowsky's Dune to be made. Like that's the one I wanted. But when I heard that Villeneuve was making this film, and especially because I loved Blade Runner 2049. I was excited, and yeah, I agree with mostly with everybody when they say that. I think the first one for me was a better movie, but I still feel like I enjoyed this movie thoroughly. I love the journey of Paul. And not just Paul, me and Chris. I mean, Chris, you and I talked about it last night.
Yeah.
I love the journey of Rebecca Ferguson's character, and the turn she took. We'll get into later, but I stand on the fact that I think this is probably some of the best sci-fi that we're probably going to get for a long time.
Kira, we're going to get to what your thoughts are, but somehow a video of you surfaced, and I think we need to all take a look at it. I don't know what how did this. Someone's okay. We're just going to take a look at this.
Amazing.
I don't know what. Are you? Is this something to do with dragons? What is going on with you?
Oh no! Oh, you two have to kill each other now.
All right, Kira. Also, by the way,
Chris, that's really fitting. Very fitting because I'm literally rewatching all of Game of Thrones with my daughter. We're in season 7, so that was actually perfect. So thank you for that.
Kira, you didn't get to do an intro, so tell us you're a host on a show called Hollywood First Look. You recently interviewed the cast of Dune Part 2.
I did. Hello, for those of you who don't know who I am, I'm Kira Lynn. I'm a TV host. I host a show called Hollywood First Look, and I'm an entertainment journalist and a film critic. And yes, I did get to interview most of the cast. Not all of them, but Zendaya is as lovely and as beautiful as one could imagine that she is. So, but if you want my thoughts, I don't. Is this the appropriate time right now?
Sure. Yeah. No. We're getting everyone's first impressions, and then we're gonna dive in.
I did myself a disservice watching Dune 1. I went to the Warner Brothers lot. It was a free screening. And I love Dune 1. So going into the second one, I was there for a press screening. They did it in IMAX. And I wish I had experienced Dune 1 in IMAX because I felt the sound, the beautiful sound, the creativity and the direction in that. I felt it in my heart. And, that is like my first impression, like the sound. If anybody's going to go and see this movie, go see it in IMAX. It was made to be seen in this format. In terms of story, I'm a sucker for a love story. So, I can see that I'm not the only girl on this panel, but, I do love a push and pull, and I love, oh gosh, I'm going to give this stuff away, but I do love a good love story. So I am with Dante. I love the film. So I really can't wait for Dune Messiah to come, if he's allowed to make it, and see where this continuation goes.
Well, we'll get into it. Now I just want to throw it out there. What did you love? What did you have a problem with? And this may get into spoiler territory, so we may want to put a little spoiler warning at the bottom. But
well, should we just do a not spoiler one this time?
Okay, not spoiler. What did you
not
love?
Spoiler favorite.
What did you love? And then we'll talk about what you have problems. But let's start with what everybody loved, and just jump in. I'm not.
Fade Rotha.
Woo! Yeah,
Austin Butler.
Oh my boy.
Definitely, 100%. He was great.
Getty Prime for sure.
Yeah.
I'll tell you,
Austin Butler almost stole the show.
He was good. He was good. I'm not gonna lie to you guys. I got like a little emotional, and like a little tear happened when Paul was riding the sandworm and he like took it over the dune, and then you could see all the dunes, and I was like, oh my god, so good. That, like, I love that shit. That got me.
And in IMAX, you could feel it. It was amazing.
Oh yeah,
the best parts.
It was scary when he was falling into the wake of the sand.
Oh my god,
it was scary. I was terrified.
Yeah, it was
so good.
Yeah. I really like Florence Pugh as Princess Irulan. I mean, I when she, you'll know when you see it, but when she's fully decked out and call it her chrome phase, spectacular. I'm a huge fan of hers anyway, but I thought she was a great addition to the cast, and I really enjoyed her.
I'm gonna go ahead and just say I love Rebecca Ferguson's arc in this movie. She she was a little subdued in the first movie, but in this, man, she really took ownership of who she is. You know what I mean?
Tiger Mom.
And, without giving anything away.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think for the most part, all the performances, the only issue I have, I'm sorry to, because there's so much stuff to love. Austin Butler, Geedy Prime, the world building, the Rob, your word, verisimilitude. It felt real. It felt so real. And I know some people complain about the score. I love the score.
I love it.
We were sitting in that IMAX theater last night. I didn't get to see it IMAX the first time. I saw it at the AMC Burbank 16, which is technically not full IMAX, as Jeff would put it. It's kind of Limax, but I will see it at the Universal. The sound and everything, and Austin Butler, who's introduced halfway into the film, I'm sitting there going like, "Where's Fade Roth? Isn't Fade Roth a big part of this movie?" As soon as he gets in, he kind of takes over.
Well, it's because we're all, I don't know, whoever's read the books, the linear storytelling is totally different. So it's like we can't help but be, I'm sure Nerd Cookies and whoever else, like you guys can't help. I'm like, where's Ray? Because we're like, okay, we know the structure and chronology of the book, and it's hard to put that away and just watch the movie. That's why, Nerd Cookies correct. I want to see it again so I can actually appreciate the movie for what it is.
100%.
Right.
And then also the music was hard for me to pay attention to because I was doing all these nitpicking things, and I want to go back again and pay more attention to the music.
I have to ask you guys, who here has read the book and who hasn't? I mean, I have never read the book. I barely made it through the first 10 minutes.
I've read all of every book.
So, can you very, quickly, is there a vast difference between, the book versus the film?
Yes and no.
Yes.
Yes and no.
Yes and no.
There's vast character differences, but overall the book is beautifully adapted in parts 1 and 2, like almost much better than the 84 movie. In my opinion.
I don't know about that.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah.
And she's like,
There's some gross changes actually.
In the 84 movie, my daughter was like, is this the CGI from the 80s? Like, that's literally all she could say. And we turned it off within 15 minutes. But so it's good to know that, Denny really, I mean, he's been such a big fan of the book. I think he read it when he was 14.
He's a fan of David Lynch's movie too. There's nods to the 84 movie.
There is.
A lot, actually.
In the score, like there was like 3 notes that were kind of from the original score, but then he changed it a little bit after that. And I was like, ooh, I like that. Oh, thanks, hon.
That's awesome. Yeah, you're right.
Kira, I never read the book.
Okay.
I've been very down on Hans Zimmer's music until he worked on Dune. In my eyes, Zimmer has redeemed himself for all the mediocre work he's been doing for decades. So, Hans Zimmer, hats off to you, and I hope you get an Academy Award for this film.
Well, he found
he does
something
great
that he
things,
loved because he loves Dune too. Like Hans Zimmer's a huge Dune fan. So
He has combined sound design and soundtrack perfectly. That's what I thought.
Kira, I think, hit on something interesting because since she hasn't read the book, a whole new generation of people are going to be watching this film who have no frame of reference for the book. So they probably won't be worried about the same things that book readers will, or won't be looking for the same things. So I think Kira's perspective is very interesting from that.
Well, and also you have to remember, like I guarantee you probably 80% of the people going to watch this film are normies like us. They probably never read the books or even saw the original movie. So I think as a whole, if they saw I think they're going to enjoy the series as a whole.
here's like something like another thing I love about this movie is that it's going to get people to read the book. And that's my favorite thing about these movies is that people are going to read the fucking book, and it's so good. So,
yeah, because now I want to read the book after having seen that movie. I want to read the books now.
You're gonna like it more because it's like if you love something and then they expand on that thing that you love, which the book does. It's just better, The book is. I'm not saying you can't compare the book to the movie. There's two separate mediums,
sure.
On two separate art forms, but like. if you like the lore, you're going to be so happy with the book because it's just there's so much more, you know.
Yeah.
I think
And
Lofty points something out though, that the one thing I would say my criticism of the film in terms of the lore is you don't understand, like for instance, especially in this movie, why is spice vital?
Right.
You know, other than the
Oh.
fact that you see the Fremen, there's so much. What was I thought really missing in this film is to understand the
Right.
ramifications of what Dune lore meant. Like
Right.
in this, everyone's like, okay, we're going to drink the water of life. Well, what does that mean? And I think like in Lynch's version, it's a hard thing to do. You know, it's not, it could kill you. And if a man drinks the water of life, it could be even
He
worse.
tried and died.
He tried and died. You know, I am the shadow
Okay.
mapes, the housekeeper.
Right.
But the thing is, my one complaint throughout this whole movie is Dune lore is really interesting.
Right.
And while they talk a lot about the prophecies, I thought you kind of understood this, but the prophecies that the Fremen believe in are BS.
Yeah.
You know, that were planted there a long time ago, and you don't really understand how the Bene Gesserit sisterhood has been working behind the scenes, and you don't like even the Kwisatz Haderach, you don't even know what that is, you know. And even in Lynch's Dune, they came back, for he is the, you know, and you get a lot of all that. It's my brother, Baron. You know, you get all, and so there's a lot of. I would say this works like a tone poem version of Dune, as opposed to a plot-driven lore version of the story of Dune.
Yeah.
And it has, and I kind of like it because that sort of dream logic, it doesn't like hammer home this stuff that makes it so didactic, like here's what you need to understand. On the other hand, I would like to have had him come down a little bit more in terms of the details of what makes the Dune world so interesting. Like,
Right.
you don't even have an idea because you haven't seen a third stage guild navigator that comes into play.
That's exactly what I missed.
And so you don't understand, like, you can't travel the universe without folding space, which comes directly from the spice. And in both movies, they kind of, but you don't know that. And if you're a casual movie viewer, it's like, you know, even in Star Wars, we understand the hyperdrive, and when it doesn't work, you can't go anywhere until it gets fixed. Well, if we don't have spice, why is the spice so valuable? Why does everybody want it? Why is Arrakis important? And I don't think you really understand it in the film.
You know, and that's a good point, because honestly, I thought spice was just a drug.
It expands
I thought it was just a drug.
They don't explain it explicitly. They do a better job explaining it in David Lynch's Dune. You know, the spice is their relationship. You know what I mean?
It extends life, it expands consciousness, and it is the gasoline, like traveling fuel of the entire Imperium.
And if you do a lot of it, you will evolve. You will no longer be just human.
Right.
They did a little. They did a little explanation of that in Doom Part 1, where Paul is looking at his film books or something. But yeah, it was a very small explanation, and there were some foundational lore elements missing from Dune Part 2 in connection to the spice that wasn't addressed, and that's something that I'm missing too.
Did they ever say where the spice came from in either Part 1 or Part 2?
Well, I mean, they say it's from Dune, and you can only get it on Dune.
It's harvested.
I mean, we know it's harvested on Arrakis.
Yeah, on Arrakis, but its exact origins, I don't think they ever made clear.
It's hard because I wasn't paying attention to from a normie's perspective, because I just know that the spice, the Shai Hulud, and I just kind of took that for granted. So I don't know. I'd have to talk to people that has never read the books, and if they understood where the spice comes from, and if they remember in Part 1 when there was narration about space travel, if they remember, you know, like I think, I don't know. It's hard because I read the book. I just took it for granted, and I think Rob said it pretty well. It's like, I think this movie, you know, Part 1 and 2 combined is more. When I'm watching it, I care less about the lore, and I care more about the 5-hour-long epic cinematic masterpiece. Like, it's just a different experience, and I'm not as, when I'm reading a book, I am paying attention to words, and I'm looking things up, and it's just, that's just, you know, I watch things, consume things differently depending on the medium. So,
but I will say, even though they didn't get into the lore of the spice, they did establish that, at least to the normie audience, that it's an important resource that these people are fighting for. So
Right.
on that base level, we understand spice is important because it's a resource that these people need.
Because he's more interested in tone. He's creating, as you said, Robert, it's like a tone poem, and he gets the tone perfectly. And if you get the tone perfectly in a movie, you don't really care about sometimes all the details.
That's what Villeneuve is so good at, is getting the tone.
Yes.
Like with Blade Runner 2049.
Yeah.
Like he understands the assignment for sure.
Another thing too, you know, I think the real important thing about this story is, call it a heel turn, but in Lynch's Dune, you don't understand by the end of that movie where Paul Atreides really is. He seems like he's a hero. In this movie, you see a cloak of darkness descend on Paul Atreides. The whole idea of Dune is that be careful of messianic figures. Don't believe in these charismatic leaders. Don't always follow them directly where you think they are going to take you, because you might not like what you find.
Right,
and they did. I mean, the moment when he addresses the Fremen fundamentalists and makes his speech, I'm like, yo.
Oh yeah,
that was it, man. You're at a Nuremberg rally. You're there where see not you know, and I would follow. I was like, yes, Atreides, I will follow you. And I thought they did a really good, because that's really, take the lore away, but what's really important to the story is Paul Atreides' journey and what he starts from and what he becomes. And I thought they did a wonderful job taking you on that journey and really teeing up where the story was going to go and what was actually happening. And it becomes terrifying.
And the part I love about that too, now that you bring that up, is I love the fact that throughout the film, you see him fighting it. He's fighting that destiny, right? Like he's warning people, you don't want me to do this. You don't want me to do this, right?
But at the same time, like, when he changed, like what really, like it was so fast. He's like, all of a sudden he's like, I don't want to do this. And then he's like, okay, I'm all in. And you're like, well, what? Like,
well, he drank the water of life, and you know,
he's also playing the game. He's playing the Game of Thrones. In his mind, I'm going to avenge my father. You know, at the end of the day, I'll play your game.
He discovered he was a heart. Were we doing spoiler? I'm sorry.
Not yet.
No.
Are we?
We'll hold off on spoilers for a little bit.
But I missed that father. The sleeper has awakened. I mean, from
yeah.
Can I just say something non-spoilery quick? You know what's crazy about this movie? I don't know. Some people say they like part one better. That's interesting. It's because this movie is so much more entertaining. There is a battle at the end. There are like 3 or 4 skirmishes throughout the movie that are all very unique and interesting. And then there's a couple like one-on-one fight choreography that is out of this world. Like it's so good.
Yeah.
It's nonstop entertaining. And on top of that, there's somehow more character development. I don't know how people, I'm going to have to, maybe you guys can answer, because I don't understand how this movie is just not, way above what the first one even attempted to do.
Well, I like what.
Yeah,
well, you know what? I can always equate that to the Infinity War Endgame thing, right? It's like I liked Infinity War better, but I loved Endgame. I love them both, right?
Yeah.
I think it was that build up, that setup to where we got the finish. But I think starting with that first movie, especially again speaking for a normie, I'm just taking in this whole new world, right? I'm just taking it all in, and you're seeing these things happening, and then you see the betrayal and what happens with his father, and all these things were just this beautiful setup. And I just felt like it was so well done that I was ready for the second movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
And the second movie delivers. It completely delivers in every way. I just love the build up of that first movie so much.
So that's how I feel about the Fellowship of the Ring personally. A lot of people like the Two Towers or the Return of the King more. I don't know. Actually, Fellowship has a lot of fans. But what you just described is set up. I understand that. My thing is with Dune 1 is it feels, in my opinion, like a prologue, not necessarily a complete film and a setup simultaneously. But Nerd Cookies wanted to respond.
That was largely the problem I had with the first film, because it doesn't even have like a proper ending. Like there's no the movie just stops. There's no like actual like conclusion or resolution. It's like you're in the middle of a chapter and like the chapter's just oh, end of the chapter, and there's no like actual ending.
And
That was
there's
my
Funny.
main
I feel
problem
like
with the
that way
first
with
movie.
Dune Part 2 because
Oh,
I like
okay.
Dune Part 1's ending.
I like.
Dune Part
I
2.
have an
We're gonna
issue with
get
the
into-
ending of this film as
But
well.
that's
But I
spoilery.
will say,
Yeah.
Timothy Chalamet.
Yeah.
You know, I've been thinking about Paul for many years, and what I would want to see in an actor performing Paul on the big screen in a movie like this. And Timothy Chalamet, I think, hit every box I wanted to for Paul, just in terms of his conflict, his desires, his hopes and dreams, his fears. He
love.
captured, yeah, everything I ever wanted to see for Paul in a Dune movie. He brought to his performance. And in terms of spectacle, that one scene I think was his worm riding scene, which is like a rite of passage for all Fremen. And that is the scene where I feel like the greatness of what Herbert wrote matches the vision of Villeneuve as a filmmaker. I think is when that one scene is where I think everything works in concert for this film.
People were asking what you're eating, so I wanted to make sure they knew. Sorry
You
about
know,
that.
it's funny you said that.
Peter bite cracker.
Okay.
It's funny you said that about Timothy, because when I first saw it, I'm like, he looks like a 12-year-old boy, right? But then there's a turn. There's something when he turns and it goes dark. There's a gravitas to his performance.
Well, I mean, it's good that he looks
which is
young.
great.
He's supposed to look young. Paul is
Right.
he's
I agree.
he's 15 when he's introduced in the books. He's a little he's a kid. He's a little boy.
We got to talk about the time changes in the spoiler section with people's ages and all that stuff. That's very important to talk about, I think.
Well, let's okay. Any final thoughts on? I think there's a lot to love. I would say that the things I love for the most part about the film outweigh my nitpicks. Although technically I have a lot of nitpicks.
Yeah.
And most of it.
Here's
had to
what
do
I
with-
didn't like. Her name is Cheney, not Chani. I'm not going to call her Chani. I didn't like the romance. I didn't like Zendaya. I'm sorry.
Well, let's wait. I got to show you guys a video. I want to show a quick video here. I don't know if we'll watch all of it, but my friend Damon Packard is a filmmaker. If you don't know who Damon Packard is, subscribe. You know who he is, right, Rob?
Reflections of Evil.
Okay, he has a YouTube channel where he's been toying with AI, and okay, this is what he did. He created a video called "A Visit to the Dune 1984 Set," and we're just gonna take a look at this video real quick here. So it's 5 minutes. We're not gonna watch the whole thing, but I'll put the link in the description.
Director David Lynch is the new kid on the block.
We have an echo.
Hot on the heels of Eraserhead, he is commanding a $40 million science fiction epic for the
I
screen.
think we can get away with this with the weather the way it is now.
Bizarre, unique vision brings this classic novel to life for a whole new generation of fans.
John, I want to have a private discussion with Sean later. She's been showing up drunk again to the set. I mean, I don't mind her drunk, but please not when she shows up to work.
He commands his cast and crew effortlessly in the scorching hot desert in the Liwa Oasis region of Ahu, Dubai, on the southern border of Saudi Arabia. Basically, way the hell out in the middle of nowhere. A place most people don't know about or would want to visit.
We're all going to die of heat stroke out here.
Actress Sean Young, who plays Chani, has been drinking 3 gallons of wild turkey and whiskey every day on the set until she passes out. Her drinking problems cast a strain on the production crew.
We don't know how she got this much alcohol out here. It's strictly forbidden in this region, and they don't really sell it anywhere in Abu Dubai.
The weather, food, water, and accommodations are horrible, but this production has a job to do, and
what are your guys' thoughts? This is first of all, I love Damon Packard.
I
And he's
love the
been doing
Toto
those
soundtrack.
Weird AI videos.
We're
I
all,
would.
our filmmakers. We're all done. We're all
What's
done.
that?
I mean, I look at this and one guy doing something like this. Imagine where we're going to be 5 years from now. People are just going to be cranking out their own epics.
This is what I'm saying is it's within reach for indie filmmakers to do an incredible sci-fi epic. And a lot of this is, look, the problem is with a lot of these effects, and this is Marsha Lucas, why she is so brilliant, is that she knew when to cut away from the effects, which was really quickly, because most of those Star Wars original effects, especially the practical ones, if you linger on them too long, they're bad. They're just bad effects. But if you see them for, a fraction of a second, it totally sells it along with the sound. So anyways, I just wanted to share this with you guys because I thought this video, it's just so weird and it looks so cool. Anyone else have comments?
Soundtrack.
Can someone get me some bleach for my eyeballs, please?
I love the pugs. I miss the pug.
Battle pugs.
The original.
Yeah.
Pugs,
Anyways, all right. Well,
I have no idea
I just wanted a quick divert.
Wow.
To pivot over to spoiler discussion.
Well, the Dune universe explicitly banned all use of thinking machines and AI.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting conversation to have, but it's actually AI is scary, and I feel bad for filmmakers. And I think it's going to ultimately be a problem more than a interesting solution, but that's just my opinion.
Like replicants.
Right.
Well, I think the more people have access to like anything they want is gonna encourage people to like be isolated and not talk about, conversations around hobbies is dead. No, there's not going to be Kubricks, no more Kubricks, Hitchcocks, no more.
I totally disagree with that. There will always be a need for good filmmakers.
There will be, but I'm saying a lot of people are going to care less about what there's going to be niche people, hopefully more people than I'm assuming, but a lot of people are not going to care as much about that.
Well,
stuff.
Lofty, it would make for interesting subject matter and thematic material depending on where they take this whole franchise, because they do want to do television series. They could do a whole TV series about that era of humanity thousands of years before this film, where they get into the Butlerian Jihad and that era of the thinking machines sort of taking over. And when humanity got to a tipping point where they're like, we don't want thinking machines anymore. So we have to expand our minds and our consciousness.
I'm not saying ban it. I don't think banning, but I'm just saying.
No, I'm just saying, considering we are having these conversations now, it sets a stage where if a filmmaker or creators wanted to do a TV series about that era of the mythology, it would be a good jumping off point. Yes, because we're having these talks and conversations about our films and our TV shows.
Hey, we've got a lot of super chats here and comments that I want to go through. So before we get into spoilers, let me go through these real quickly. Want to thank our new members, Thomas Myth 65, thank you, and Dil Ra 7798. Red French Moon for €5, who's a member, says, hello, great panel. Rob, was that a birthday gift, that Lego ornithopter? And will this be full spoiler? Yes, in a moment. Haven't watched it yet. I don't mind book spoilers, though. Okay. Rob, was it a gift?
No. This is an ongoing joke that I still don't understand, but people decided to wish me a happy birthday on my channel every single day. Now they're going to other channels that I make appearances on and wishing me happy birthday there. So kudos to you, French Moon, for keeping this joke continuing.
Hey, and Red French Moon goes on to say, RMB, great enthusiasm for Dune 2 on Paulie's video. And from Rumble, we're live on Rumble. Hey, Rumble folks. $8.24 says plenty of unintentional diversity on this dais, because these are the most qualified people, regardless of their identity. Hollywood should take notes.
Nice.
Yeah, I don't know. Just like I just know all these people, so come and talk movie stuff. So there you go. I also think that Dune itself was sort of organically diverse. It was just, it felt very organic.
It didn't feel forced.
Didn't feel forced. The only one that felt forced, and I'm really curious what Nerd Cookies thinks of this, and Danica, is Dr. Liet Kynes in the first Dune. I don't think the actress was. I look at like the gravitas. Yeah, the gravitas of why am I spacing on the actor's
Max
name?
von Sydow.
Max von
Aaron
Sydow.
Duncan
Yeah.
Brewster.
So good.
He's
Yeah, he
so
was.
good in that role. And then I feel like, and my understanding is that Denis Villeneuve was forced to, you've got to have some diversity in the cast. So,
Apparently,
what
it
are
was
your
Sean's
thoughts?
faith's idea.
If they did Dune as a series, I would love to see Daniel Day-Lewis as Leah Kynes. That's who I
Oh
would
my
cast.
God!
Ooh,
Wow.
Yeah,
Oh,
that would
So
be great.
good.
That's great casting. Yeah.
Well, you know, I
But also too, like, go ahead.
no, go ahead, man.
I was just gonna say also too, back just with Kynes is how different, obviously the gender swipe, but also to how Kynes met their end, which I thought was a glorious, tragic, very much, you know, in the book, just so. It was such a harrowing journey of his death, because he's talking to his father,
bittersweet,
and his
and-
father's
yeah.
talking him back. It's one of the greatest sci-fi passages for me.
Yeah.
And you got none of that. You got none of that in this. That
Yeah,
was
but
a
it's
very,
like,
that was
again,
a
you
big
can't-
disappointment.
it's like
That
you-
was just
you
a
can't put it-
disappointment.
there's not enough time.
That was just a disappointment for me.
Along
Well,
with Dr. Kynes has a very important connection to another character.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, one
And
of the
how
things
that's
I wanted to
lost.
say too is that, you know, the idea of call it girl boss, girl power, Dune inherently has woven into the fabric of it some of the most powerful women ever depicted in science fiction.
Yeah.
And I think, and by the way, in a way that's done, I think beautifully and makes a lot of sense, and it makes the reader. I mean, when I first read Dune, I was, I think, 11. And I'm like, I want to meet women like this when I get older. I still do.
Yeah.
So, and
does
Charlotte
mine.
Rampling would be at the top of my list for people that, if you ever seen The
Well,
Night Porter
that's
and all.
one thing that's so odd to me is like they're really trying to, you know, like, oh, we have all these powerful, strong women in this film. And then they chose to make the way that Rebecca Ferguson portrayed Lady Jessica before taking the water of life is so incredibly weak. She's constantly
Yeah.
crying in the first movie. She's a Bene Gesserit.
Yeah.
Like their whole thing is emotional control. Not to say they never cry, but like they've got a handle on it. Okay. And she's like constantly crying through that film. And I really didn't like when she threw up in the new film. I didn't
Thank
like
you.
it's like she's a Bene Gesserit. She would not be
Well,
disgusted.
she was
by
pregnant.
that.
Yes, thank you.
No, but not
Thank
that
you.
pregnant. She was not pregnant enough for
That
yet.
bothered me,
Oh, that's
and it
why
wouldn't have
that's-
mattered.
here.
They have supreme
Oh, okay.
control, superhuman
Supreme
control
But
over
you guys
every
know-
bodily
Never throw
function.
She has an abomination in her side of her stomach.
No.
No,
I-
that's they.
The fetus is developing so fast because of
Yeah.
the spice. I felt like they were visually trying to give us a
what I
little.
I agree. I
little
took it
hint
as her throwing up as Alia making her presence
That's-
known.
That's what I
Yes.
thought.
That's how I took
thought
it.
it
That
was
it was
she
an
was
addition
disgust-
to the movie.
Sorry.
No.
I thought
That's
she was
what-
disgusted by the water collection.
Yeah, that's what
and
the
that,
Fremen thought. Yeah, that's what the other Fremen thought. I agree with you that that's what it could have went both ways, but I took it as she was
Regardless, a Bene Gesserit would never
mutating.
have thrown up if she wasn't supposed
Correct.
to throw up.
Yeah, she's not
Yeah,
my
me too.
favorite. Sorry, she's not my favorite. Lady Jessica.
But
Miniseries is my
really?
favorite.
I thought she was
After she
brilliant.
took the water of life, I was like, okay, now I recognize this Lady Jessica. Like this, like I recognize. But everything before the water of life, I was like, who the fuck
I
is
thought
this
after I don't know, because at the end of the book, she's very sympathetic towards Paul, and she wasn't in this movie. And I thought the opposite. I thought after she took the water, she became more of a psychopathic.
I
villain.
agree. Yeah, she was kind of like
yeah.
Lady Macbeth after she
To,
took
to
the
your
water.
point,
Yes.
Danica, I feel like the female characters are just so awesome as is. And throughout this marketing campaign leading up to Dune's release, they were all like, oh, look at how we're expanding the female characters and making them better and making improvements. And I have the most problems with the female characters' portrayal.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Particularly with Chani, but I do have my qualms about Lady Jessica as well, and
What
I
about
feel
the
like they're
Reverend-
diminished, and I
what
feel like
about
the
the Reverend
opposite
Mothers?
is true.
What about like the Reverend Mothers and also Leah Sado and Irulan? I thought those were pretty good. I actually like the Reverend Mother. I like her. She's a good actress. I forget her name.
Charlotte
Charlie
Rampling.
Rampling.
Yeah,
Leah
fantastic.
Sado was excellent in this. I
Yes,
thought
I'll
she
agree
was
with that.
perfect.
Yeah.
Totally.
Look
Yeah.
up the Night Porter. The Night Porter. Look up that movie, Lofty.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Charlotte.
I
Rampling.
thought-
Yeah, Rob knows. her
Look up
song.
Zardoz.
Speaking of somebody in the chat, you pulled up a super chat a minute ago, but they said gives credit to the cinematographer Greg Fraser. Fantastic. He should be on the cover of every poster. This goes back to
Oh, you got it, Rob. Oh, that's great.
I did.
This
Yeah,
goes back
Kira
to,
got that book too.
I did.
Oh yeah,
Gorgeous.
But Greg
Kira's-
Fraser did Zero Dark 30. He did Bright Star. He did, Batman.
Batman.
He's really
I did an interview with him a couple weeks ago that you can see on John Campy's channel. It was like a 90-minute interview.
That's crazy.
Before we get to more super chats or whatever, we're talking about this is spoiler territory, and we're talking about issues we have with the movie. And I think for those of us who has read the book, I know Nerd Cookies has, I have. Yeah,
I have.
everyone raise your hand who's read the book. Okay.
I got it.
So not Kira or Dante. There you go.
Yeah, we're the only ones.
So it's like, okay, so if I didn't have the knowledge, do I think I would have liked the movie better? Because I'm thinking in my head about things that were, and excuse me, Nerd Cookies, you brought up that like the actor who played Thufir Hawat actually shot his scenes with Austin Butler with Fade Rautha, and he was cut completely out of the.
Oh no!
You got to hear this. You got to hear this, Danica.
He did an interview with some university. I can't remember. I did a video on it, reporting on his comments about filming, and he talked about his scenes with Austin Butler and how awesome it was to work with Butler. That he was really just he kind of turned it off, turned off Fade and was really nice behind the scenes, but yeah, he was saying that he was really scary in their scenes, and then right when the action or cut, he was like completely different. He was very sweet. It was a very nice interview, and it made me really hyped to see their scene together. And
oh wow.
So I was very, very sad for that. And that was what I was talking about earlier about that weight of expectation, not just from the book, but also from what Denis himself said, that he promised more Mentat stuff. He said that. And
Right.
he didn't get any of
That's
that.
crazy that
There's
like
no
Thufir got cut, but Zendaya's friend who has no name, who like has
Right.
multiple
Yeah,
fucking lines in the
right.
film.
Good
Like,
point.
who the
Good
fuck is
point.
she?
And he had a
I thought
health
she was
scare
useless,
in the middle
yeah.
of filming. Like he had to leave. Stephen McKinley Henderson had to leave and then came back because of a health scare to film his scenes. And so it was a very trying thing for him. It's what it sounded like. And
Oh man.
I'm just so sad that and knowing Villeneuve's stance on scenes that get cut, I feel just like I'm in mourning.
I
wonder if there was a
noticed
dick
at the
pic.
very end of the film in the credits, it said special thanks to, and the actor who played Thufir's name was in the special, like, thank
Oh,
you.
wow.
Even though his name didn't get in, like, he
It
wasn't
could have been a
in the
studio
movie.
decision, right? Maybe that's
Yeah.
why.
Well, according to
It's an
Denis
timing
Villeneuve, he told Collider, "I'm a strong believer that when it's not in the movie, it's dead. I kill darlings, and it's painful for me." So, according to Villeneuve, we're never seeing any of that footage.
But
that's whack.
I would
Well,
love
your
to
question
see.
was your question was, can you separate the book from
Right.
movie, right? I don't know why I had such a hard time with doing that with the second one of Dune. Maybe the expectations of the first one, because Lord of the Rings didn't hold true to to a lot of the book. It got the essence and it got some but
Oh yeah, there's a lot they left out.
Like Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, everyone brings that up. Tom Bombadil.
Well, when it comes to Thufir, it's interesting because in the book, he's captured and used by Baron Harkonnen, and there's a whole relationship there, and he's even working behind the scenes for the benefit of the Atreides, and that would have been, I don't even know where they could have even put that in this film without extending the running time by a half an hour.
Yeah.
Because there's a whole, you'd have to set up that relationship that he was captured, that he's being, I think they put poison in him.
That's
and
right.
and only the
milk the
Harkonnens
cat.
have, that's how they control him, and only the Harkonnens have the antidote. And it's a really interesting relationship there. And I'm sure when they were cutting the movie together, they're like, we can't keep this subplot in. And there's no way to keep a little bit of it. That's why I can understand why he cut it, but it is too bad because the idea that the Atreides still had something going on where
I would have maybe argued to put Fade's introduction in the first movie, so you could have maybe kept Thufir in this movie, but you can't because you have this big introduction on Geety Prime, and it really needs to be about Fade and Lady Margot and all that. So
Well, I think
there's
Danica
no
said it
place for the
perfectly.
movie anymore.
It should be a series, but unfortunately, if you made
Yeah.
it a series, it wouldn't have the intensity
No.
of a theatrical
IMAX.
experience.
IMAX.
So I just wanted to finish my thought was that I had a harder time because the storytelling of this film, it was very clunky for me, especially the first half. And then characters acting out of character. Chani from the first movie to the next movie. I didn't buy into their love.
Oh, they've
I
never.
agree, Paul.
Not at all.
They have no chemistry. I don't think they have chemistry.
Yeah, Chris. So that's got nothing to do with the book. I don't. That's cool. I can live with that. I'm not. I'm going to see something cinematic. I get it.
Let's talk. I want to pivot.
Those are my things.
Pew is more attractive than I feel. There's a attraction there. Naturally, visually, than
the book movie thing for me, I as a huge fan of Jurassic Park, the movie and the book, I prefer the film. I think a lot of the times when something's very different than The Shining, I think this has happened enough times where I think we have to get more specific and Latino Slant was getting specific with his character issues. But like, just because it's different doesn't make it bad. If anything, like I said, Jurassic Park is better than the book.
Didn't Michael Crichton work on the film as a screenwriter?
I believe he did. I just know people who were very butthurt about the changes they made, and they want like they want the new movie to be like a remake of the book, and it's just
Shining's
like,
a good
I
example.
don't like.
Shining is much better than the book.
Lofty, I totally get that argument, and that's why there are many things about this movie that I can really let go of and overlook.
Right.
And in terms of the way
Blade Runner is another one.
The way the movie adds dramatic tension. I understand how the movie's trying to add dramatic tension and kind of conflict that wasn't necessarily present in the book, but it's necessary for a movie-going audience that has no idea about what Dune is and has never picked up a book in their lives can kind of have a better understanding of where these characters are at and what and why they're making certain decisions. I totally understand that.
Well, the Alia thing, I understand, and I'm like, that's a great workaround.
I love what they did there.
I have no problem with that. But the Chani thing that they changed, and I specifically, my most hated thing is the ending shot of the movie. I hate that ending shot so much. And that not only that change totally changes the course of the entire story if you're going to do Dune Messiah.
Right.
I don't know how they're going to do that, Danica. Because it's a total inversion of the book, but aside from it being an inversion, the way the movie ended was just not satisfying at all to me, and it kind of I left the movie, and I talked to Chris about this after I got out of the movie. I kind of felt kind of sour, despite I was on board with pretty much everything else until what we saw.
Yeah, that ending, and Danica, you and I were talking about this last night.
Yeah.
Love the film. That final shot changes the focus. And also,
I'm going to take my ball and go home.
Rob and Ramesh, as filmmakers, your opening shot and your closing shot of a movie
is what you remember the most.
You remember the most. It matters. It's a statement. You are saying something by doing that. And by taking the focus off this holy war, and it's not really declared. Like, I feel like there needed to be, unfortunately, someone to kind of just say what's going on. That third act needed to be maybe 30 minutes longer. I felt
maybe he was bringing the scope to the intimate.
If I may offer a retort to this,
yeah, I disagree, but Rob, you take it away. Rob.
Well, I think that if you remember how when I read the original script for Dune Part 1, it opened with Duncan, Idaho, basically doing an orbit dive down to the surface of Arrakis to meet with the Fremen. And I was surprised that they removed that sequence and they kind of changed it around where Paul first meets Duncan, Idaho in the movie. But they opened the movie with Chani talking about her planet, Arrakis, and they talk about the victimization of her people by the Harkonnens, and she opens the film. So she's also the character where everything she loved about her planet and the people and everything that's happened, she was the person that got the most effed in this entire film. Maybe both literally and figuratively, if you look at her character. And by ending the movie on her, she's everything that she loved is gone, including Paul. And so for me, they bookended both parts of the movies with her. And to me, it was the ending of The Godfather. It was like we were talking about last night. It was the door being shut on Kay. And that's how the movie ends. And I couldn't help but think that that's what Villeneuve was doing.
That's a good argument, but this movie does not open with Cheney. It opens with Irulan, who
sure
introduced but as a whole, as two.
I'm talking about as a whole thing, because and the thing is, she'll come back. I mean, obviously she's going to come back, but basically in her mind, she's lost it all. She's lost her people. She's lost her planet. She's lost the man that she loves. She's lost everything, and everybody else has been playing the Game of Thrones, and she was not.
I was just
because she truly loved Paul.
I was just very confused by that, Robert. It wasn't consistent in 2. Chani was all over the place, and then
Cheney gave her passive approval for Paul to make these decisions as well.
Yes, she did.
She gave up the tears because she was part of the prophecy that she didn't believe in. If we're going all the way to woman scorn, I'm gonna go hop on a worm and get out of here at the end of this movie, then she would have walked out of being part of the prophecy. Period. Punto final. She would have. She wouldn't have. But
she was still a part of her people, though.
Yeah, there was a lot of pressure for her.
She was not. Her people were not into that prophecy.
I mean,
It was very well established, and I'm talking about.
Well, they weren't fundamentalists.
North
they were
versus
not
south
at all.
right.
And yet,
And I don't know. I understand why they did that, where you have the fundamentalists and the faithless within the film. Like I understand why they're doing that. But at the same time, I didn't like it. I didn't like seeing Fremen people split like that. Because the thing is they live in such a harsh environment that you can't have splits like that in your people. Like everybody has to agree and work together and be on the same fucking page.
Well, I think you can if in a movie version of it, I think. And they did the North and South kind of separation of culture thing. And I think it worked as a movie. I think if you're talking about the book, it has to be more consistent and based in lore and world building.
Well, I'm glad that there was some skepticism among the Fremen, but I don't agree with having Chani being the main source of that skepticism, especially if this is from the person who loves Paul. It made even less sense to me as the story continued for their love story. I just didn't believe, I didn't buy it, why she would still be so in love with this man as she's vehemently opposed to everything that he's doing. And then at the end, they're estranged. I don't know. I have no idea where the story goes from here. It's very...
Yeah, but you also have to remember, though, Paul wasn't on board with the Messiah thing, through most of the film. And I think that's what Zendaya or Chani loved about him, was that he fought with her people. He protected her people. And they bought into the Messiah stuff, but he didn't up until when he did.
Does he at all?
Or does he at all?
Right. I think he's just using it, because when he puts on Leto's signet ring, it's like, I'm here for my father. I'm here for the Atreides family. Right. This is just my means to an end.
But that doesn't come till later, right? So this whole time I don't think he's doing it deceptively, but he's selling her on, hey, you know what? Let them believe what they believe. You know me. I don't believe in this crap. Right. And that's what she fell in love with, right? And so
I think the danger is he's starting to believe, though. He's starting to believe.
I'm saying Chani was believable because Paul gave her the idea that he was not into that stuff either. And he was with her. You know what I mean?
Absolute power corrupts absolutely.
But that's not what Frank Herbert teaches in his books at all. No, he says it's magnetic to the corruptible, not that it is absolutely corrupt.
I don't think Paul believes that he has a choice. In part of him doesn't, because he's seen so many futures, and they kind of hinted at this, I guess, when he drank the water. But he almost feels like he's paralyzed with power, and That's
Look,
kind
I've
of
got,
what
I've got the quote for you guys
Yeah.
for this whole argument. Okay, it's comes straight from the book.
Yeah.
Greatness is a transitory experience. It is never consistent. It depends in part upon the myth-making imagination of humankind. A person who experiences greatness must have a feeling for the myth that he is in. He must reflect what is
Yeah.
projected upon him, and he must have a strong sense of the sardonic. This is what uncouples him from belief in his own pretensions. The sardonic is all that belief permits him to move within himself. Without this quality, even occasional greatness will destroy a man. So you can't drink your own Kool-Aid, is what this
But
is.
Chani may not understand the nuances of that going
But
on.
why is
or
she so
feel-
dumb? Like, I don't understand why she's so dumb. Like,
I don't think she's dumb at all. I think she's reflecting the audience also, because we are experiencing this dramatic change in Paul. And, you know, this whole false messiah thing is like, who else is going to push back against this other than, I mean, in the book, you have a lot of inner monologue, kind of conflicting emotional stuff, but how are you going to represent that on the screen in a movie?
She's the
Traditionally it's show and don't tell. So you have to kind of narrow this down to a character. Shawnee to me was the perfect character for this. And because she was the entire time, she was very consistent. She was against the prophecy. She loved Paul because he was different. She
He's
said this in the
using
beginning of the movie.
prophecy. How are you so deeply in love with the man who is manipulating her people?
But he wasn't.
I don't think she's in love with him anymore at the end of the movie.
And that's the problem.
No. I think she
I know,
is.
I know,
but he
I'm
says
saying-
to her, he says, I will always. He's picked a course of action and tells her, I will always love you, then turns around because he's playing a game. He's playing into these people's bullshit so he can then destroy them from within.
So if you get it, why didn't she get it and walk out and said peace out?
Because they never discussed it. Because he couldn't afford.
Come
He
on.
couldn't.
I mean, that's pretty obvious that he was playing the political game. I agree with you.
But she doesn't know that because she's never been in politics. She's never seen this. She's never been around this before.
She said in the film, I trust you
you
100%. She said that in the film.
My
and
problem.
Then she said, peace out. I'm bouncing.
I don't mean to dismiss what Lofty or Robert are saying, but my problem is that I think Cheney is smart enough to have self-awareness of what's going on around her.
Yeah.
And there's a part in this movie where Paul does not want to go south. He says, I'm not going south because I think they both know what that means.
Yes. And she backs
They
him up.
both know what his mother has been up to. And Cheney basically kind of makes a decision for him. And she says, these choices have already been, the world made them for us. She basically gave him approval in this scene, basically saying, whatever happens next, I will support you and back you up. Sorry, I'm having some.
They're also one of my favorite couples. Like, I love, like, in literature, like, they're these star-crossed lovers who are just, and she's just ride or fucking die. And I love their relationships in the books. And it's so sweet and so poignant and so sad and so tragic, especially in Messiah. And so that's the thing. My big question is, I understand, and I don't disagree with you, Lofty Pixels. She is the perfect person to be if you have to pick somebody. But where does that leave Dune Messiah? Because they talk about wanting to do Dune Messiah, and that totally changes the
in the beginning of Dune Messiah, she gives her approval. Well, she says, have a child with Lady Irulan, right? She's very submissive and I actually haven't finished Dune Messiah. I'm reading it right now, but I understand what you're saying. It seems like it's conflicting with the ending of this movie. However, this movie's ending is very momentary. It's very much Shawnee, after basically being traumatized, running out into the desert and just basically venting by riding a giant worm. I don't think we're going to see Shawnee and Paul split and have this dramatic, like, completely opposite breakup from the book. I think it's going to go back
to be the
that.
person who's going to bring him down. I mean, that's what she's set up as.
I don't think
take him down to the next one.
I don't think they're going to do that. That would be crazy.
It seems 2 days of our lives to me.
Yeah.
Yes.
And they didn't like that it was so simple. They didn't like, oh, well, she just immediately believes in Paul. Well, she's a priestess. That's part of her character in the book. And what's wrong with just a simple love between Paul and Shawnee? There's nothing wrong with that. That doesn't make her any less of an established multidimensional character.
Right. I mean, she's even like in the book, she's even like people come to challenge him all the time, you know, and she'll go out there and like Paul like doesn't know this, but she'll go out there and she'll like face these challengers and kill them, and has been like killing all of his fucking challengers. Like, wow, his woman is so fucking strong, you can't even get past his woman.
Yeah.
You know, like, so it's like, yeah, she loves him and she is like his girlfriend, whatever, but she's still like bad as fuck. Like, you can do both.
I think though that they really needed to hit home for. I agree with you in the sense that if it the book, all that stuff is missing from the movie.
Yeah.
And once you've removed that from the book, though, I think you need to make it easier for the audience to understand how he's turning on her, but in such a way it's shocking to her. But for the audience, we understand that he's playing the game now.
Well, think about this.
Well, and another thing too is like in the book, he like his father has the bound concubine, Lady Jessica. They're never married. And he's like, I wish I'd married you. But he didn't marry because he wanted to keep his options open for a political situation, like a political marriage that could help him, right? And so now you have this karma that's coming to Paul. And Paul has to have the same thing. Like in the books, he's like, he has his concubine, but he does do what his father did. And he takes the hand of Irulan, but he never touches Irulan. Never once.
No.
So, and Chani's children are the ones that are the heirs.
Right.
So, I mean, there's no problem. It's a loveless political
and they
marriage.
didn't do that either in this movie. The dead child.
Yeah,
hey, we got a lot of super chats, Gore.
Yeah, let's pivot for a second on super chats, and we'll actually come right back to this conversation. But real quick, I don't know what that was. Alan, I don't know why.
Love
Alan
it.
did that. All
That
right.
was your best video.
Super chats here from Benjamin for $49.99 says, gotta get away from this book versus movie thought process. All it does is give book sandworms the opportunity to say it wasn't as good as the book, which gives them a false sense of intellectual superiority, which no one cares about anyway.
Wow.
I gotta disagree with you, Benjamin. I think the book, and I like what Rob said earlier, that if you love this world, there's more of it in book form. So you're going to get more out of it. And I just have to reconcile with, like, I really love this movie. So I love both the book and the film, but my book brain is looking at the movie saying, I wanted more.
No,
Anyone
but
else?
you got to split. You got to split it up between the two. I agree with him.
I understand what he's saying, but I disagree. I think he's saying, which I think he's saying that people who are fans of the book, sometimes it feels like there's this moral superior high ground, or whatever you want to call it, superiority complex where I know better than you. And that's not how people that I'm aware of who read the books feel. It's just they have to we have to be able to give our perspective on the adaptation, you know. That's like a different conversation than I know more about this movie than you because I read the book. Like I watched Blade Runner before I read Electric Sheep. I watched Stalker before I read Roadside Picnic. Like I feel like we can have separate conversations completely. So it's valuable to talk about adaptations because it's a very
Harry
interesting
Potter.
conversation.
Yes, I agree.
But in this case, what they did in the movie with I'm going to say I just looked this up. Chaney. I've been saying Chani for my entire life, but the change in the movie from her character in the book is very significant, and I would think that it's worthy of discussion only because it is so significant. So I think it's
totally
worthy
changes the trajectory of
of
Dune
this.
Messiah.
Yes, it does.
Right.
That's
And there's nothing wrong with discussion.
She's more supportive, right, in the book. So.
There's actually nothing wrong with this. This is actually very natural what we're doing as far as like this first wave of discussion is that we're gonna keep referring back to the book. This is, I think, isn't this what we do? I mean,
let's get to these because there's a lot. Bad Coyote Funky for 10 says nitpick. I wanted a better fight between Gurney and Raban. We have Big Dave Bautista and Josh Brolin facing off against each other, and the conflict is over in a few seconds. Great panel today. I would agree with that. That
I think giving Raban any more screen time, fighting time against Gurney would have been an insult to Gurney Halleck. That's just my
And also it would also take away from Paul and Fade's duel.
Right. Not spelt Dylan, who's a member for $4.99, just got home, starting from the beginning, but I got to pay my dues. while I can. Love you guys. Hail.
Hail.
And Darth
Nice.
Plato
Hail
for 5
yourself.
says, Paul does what he does because he's trying to cheat the future and control fate. Paul loses this fight. In winning, he loses. And RMB, this is from Red French Moon, to RMB, since we share the same passion for Leia Seydoux, how is she in Dune Part 2? For all the panel, how are the sets, CGI props? Versus is great.
I
So,
thought
just
Leia
in general.
Seydoux, I didn't really even know she was in this movie. I hadn't
Right.
heard that.
Black
And even
and
though
white
she's got a
photography.
little bit of screen time, she's great.
Great
She's
little
so
role.
good.
man.
She's a great Benny Gesserit too. I mean, she's down. If she has to be Fade's concubine or wife, she's down. She's going to do it. And she's in there, you know, she's
she
there
just
doing
stole his seed. She's a succubus.
She did steal his scenes. I
stole
agree with
his
you,
seed,
Danica.
Because yeah.
Yeah,
She's a
she was
succubus.
great. She held her own.
And the set CGI and props are out of this world, like brilliant. It's
beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
he's doing what,
Incredible.
yeah, it's the
Even the mouse, I was scared of for a second, but it was great.
Oh, mouse, yeah.
Well, what's interesting, I think that we are going to remember this movie come award season. What other movies are coming out in 2024 that are going to rival one? I think you're looking at
Kingdom of the
possible
Planet of the Apes, maybe.
Furiosa, maybe.
I don't know about that. Furiosa.
I mean, wait a minute, Chris.
I'm talking about awards.
The Planet of the. Oh, I thought you were talking about visual effects awards.
No. Okay, so on all level, whether it's special effects, so VFX, the costume design, whether it's production design, art direction, this movie come award season is going to be up for noms in every technical category. Cinematography, obviously. So top notch, everyone at the top of their game. And then secondarily, I think you're going to look at Oscar nods for people like possibly Austin Butler for supporting. I don't know, like Timothy
Javier
Chalamet is
Bardem.
very good. What else is coming
Javier
out in 20
Bardem was
Javier, man. We
Javier
haven't even
Bardem
talked about
is
him.
amazing.
We haven't even talked
So
about
good.
Stilgar.
So good.
He's amazing.
I think
Yeah,
Oppenheimer's
he's so
probably
good.
grateful that they moved the Dune release date, because I think this would have probably gone head to head with Oppenheimer, which, you know, I'm not a big fan. I watched the movie; it was great, but I mean, this for me was way better.
Okay,
Yeah.
here's an important question, not a super chat, but Ryan Landis asks, how many on the panel have popcorn tubs? Raise your hand, Alan.
I don't.
I want a popcorn tub. I haven't been able to get one where I live, so
I'm gonna buy one on Friday when I go
Nerd
to
cookie
7 a.m.
Wait,
I don't have one. I don't have that monstrosity.
It's so cursed. I love it. It's the
But
most cursed promotional.
I don't
item.
think I can. I don't think it's just AMC doing it.
AMC.
yeah.
I'm a eunuch. I can't even
Alex.
use it anyway. I have a bottom half.
Wild Hunter
So.
for £2. Chalamet and Zendaya bring Dune and sci-fi to new generation.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Aki for £999 says, Chris, is it possible for someone who's not a fan of Zendaya and the book to like this movie?
Definitely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. Yeah.
Isaiah
didn't ruin the
Smith-
movie. I don't understand it.
They're a small piece, you know.
Isaiah Smith for 10. Love this panel. Y'all are awesome. For me, the biggest disappointments were the subtle changes to the characterization of the Fremen society and some of the themes of the novel. I think we've all been talking about that.
Yeah.
I would have loved to
So-
see Siege Tabor or Tabur or however you say it. I would have loved to see more of like the inner workings of the Siege, like because it's like in the book, it's like, oh, it's they got a plastics area and they got this area and it's like all in these caves, and I was just like, ooh, I was really looking forward to seeing more of that Siege life, but we didn't get a lot of that.
Yeah, I wanted to see the celebration post Water of Life. I wanted to
Spice
see them-
orgy. Where was
Yeah,
the
spice
spice
orgy.
orgy? I
Wanna
was
see them
sad.
have, like,
orgy.
Dude.
I did like the naming ceremony. I did like that naming.
Yeah.
I did like that part.
Hashtag
Wild
Siege
Hunter.
Life.
Wild Hunter for 2 says, eat from a sandworm bucket and your eyes turn blue. Red French Moon is back for €5. Hearing you all speak about the movie, can Hollywood learn to give more chances to projects like this, like they used to, and do less and less? I think
Yeah, they
Hollywood
should.
is.
I give Denis all the props for this.
Yeah, 100%.
You had someone with a specific point of view, who has a grasp of and has a passion for it to tell the story. And
Also, oh, I didn't realize that you're done. So you weren't done. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, all I was going to say is, and he's worked again, as I said before, he's done all the movies working his way up to this.
Well, and you think about, like, we've heard things like the new Joker film, Foley do with is $200 million budget. That's less than this movie. I mean, more than Dune 2 is less than the budget for the new
Gladiator
Joker.
is 300 million.
That's crazy.
Yeah, 300 million. And you look at that stuff and you're like, who's delivering the goods? And, we've seen, I really think the art of filmmaking, people that actually know how to make movies in Hollywood is probably in the most precarious position it's ever been in, because there's too much over-reliance on, that we'll get this stuff, but not just the volume, but getting effects in general. You've got people that don't know how to wield effects technology, and that's because they didn't grow up with it. You're going from people that do one indie film and they're jumping into $150 million movie, whereas both Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan started out in indie cinema, making movies on their own terms and working their way into the studio system, not at a large level, but then earning their way through the studio system as well.
Nolan with
Argyle was more expensive than Dune Part 2. Argyle.
Say what you want about Avatar, but James Cameron is advancing the industry's technology innovation more than anyone else besides Christopher Nolan and Denis Villeneuve. That's the trio, in my opinion. Del Toro would be doing this, but Hollywood doesn't care to give him enough budget to ever do anything. So
no, but it's the way people. I would say Del Toro and Inarritu are able to. A movie like The Revenant, while not quite at the level of Dune, is still creating epic reality that we don't see a lot of. And I think if oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry.
No, and I think Denis, coming from independent film, to your point, R&B, he then did Prisoners, which was kind of his Hollywood film, to work in that system, as Nolan did with Insomnia. So then they had the experience of making those independent films, developing their voice. Then they do the studio film, understanding the politics of how it works, and still making more films. Whereas today they do a disservice to whatever this sort of hiring practices now, where they're actually throwing people in too early.
Can you imagine the notes? Like, can you imagine screening this for the Warner Brothers executives for the first time, and then the Warner Brothers executives being put in a position where they're supposed to give notes? I would just love. I would love. I want to imagine Villeneuve walking into some meeting with the Warner Brothers execs, and they're going to tell him what they want him to change.
Yeah, they're going to ask him.
It's like a thread. You pull
modern audiences.
Look, it's very important that what you guys are talking about. It's because if you think about going in too early, well, I'm sorry, I don't know how to refer to you, Ramesh or
Ramesh,
Ramesh.
So if a Duncan Jones and Neil Blomkamp were victims of this. You have Colin Trevorrow was a victim of this. In my opinion, Gareth Edwards was a victim of this. And you know who I have a hope for the future, which is people like Ari Aster, Robert Eggers, Jordan Peele, and Alex Garland are now they're doing their thing and they're doing it very well and they love doing it. And they're basically the next Villeneuves. I think all four of them. And I think we need to be going in that direction and stop hiring people that did one indie movie and then like Andy Muschietti, who did like what, and then just giving him a big budget. And then the worst, in my opinion,
so they can control them.
That's exactly what's happening.
Yeah, that's all it's about. It's about control, man. Yeah, they can't control a guy like Chris Nolan.
No. But the problem is also remember that the filmmakers that you're talking about too generated their own projects.
Yes.
I mean, when
Jordan Peele, Robert Eggers.
Yeah, I mean, and that's something else. Whereas you look at Robert Eggers, and whether it's The Witch, whether it's The Lighthouse, like you said, he did the same thing. I thought it was a mistake to make The Northman for $90 million. Robert Eggers could have done it for 40. But when someone gives you that money, you take it.
Okay.
You don't say no. But The Northman's still a great film. It just didn't make any money.
And Tarantino always talks about having the gun. You don't have to load it, but when you've written the script and you know it so well, better than anyone else, you have almost like a loaded gun, right? And that's what's happening is with these directors that don't have that experience. They don't have that loaded gun, or they're not invested in the project that's being given to them, right?
Well, and you know it's in good hands because Denis, like, we're gonna chill for a year or two. Like, we don't need to jump in for part 3. He was saying that today.
Yeah, he said that today.
Which is, and I'm paraphrasing, but he's right on the money.
We've got some really good questions here they got some really good questions here in the super chats. Sorry, Alan. Do you want to say? Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to say was I think a lot of what Denis had going for him was the fact that he could make it for a low budget, and by coming in at a lower price, he was able to maintain the control he needed for the film.
What are okay? All right, there you go.
Nice.
Okay, hang on. Here, Benjamin asks for $4.99. Can you guys expand?
Would you like to know more about the spice orgy?
Yeah,
Yes.
the spice orgy. Danica.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. The Fremens, they got a hard life. All right. And it's like tough. It's life or death all the time with these guys. And so they got to let loose every now and again. And so when Jessica takes the water of life and she transmutes the poison and she goes through this whole thing, she also kind of spits a little back into that jar. And then it turns it into this like kind of fun spice drug. And then everybody in the siege takes it. And then they all get wild and they have a wonderful evening and everybody gets naked and just like makes it happen. And it's just like the best time ever.
I don't understand. What do they make happen?
They
Just kidding.
they make it happen. You know what I mean? Like
I mean, like with the spice bucket?
That is the best $4.99 that Benjamin spent all week. That's all I want to say on that. A Ricky Buzz for $1.99 says HBO Dune series might add more to the lore.
I've heard nothing but bad things about that series.
Yeah, if they had to replace the showrunner, if we even ever see it.
I hear it's
a
mess.
That might be good. That might be a good thing. You don't know.
Yeah.
They could have
And then
been a disaster.
Benjamin
And
goes
do I have
on
to
to
watch
say,
it to understand the third one?
Yeah.
Benjamin goes on to say breaking Disney film president Sean Bailey is leaving effective immediately. Bailey was in charge of the Disney remakes. That's interesting.
Fuckity bye. Fuckity bye.
Muffler Tape 5. Loving the discussion. Not to derail, but later could someone speak to the possibility of a Heinlein book being done by someone like Denis Moon? Thoughts?
Well, he's doing another oh boy. He's doing Rendezvous with Rama, Arthur C. Clarke. Heinlein, that's good luck with that. I want to see H.G. Wells and Jules Verne make a comeback.
And David Fincher. David Fincher was supposed to do Rendezvous with Rama.
What I think this could do.
Bradley Cooper was supposed to do Hyperion. I don't know what happened to that thing.
What I think this could do, if based on the success, and I'm trying to get tickets to see it at AMC, the IMAX that's at Universal. Okay. It's nearly sold out for a week from Friday. So I want to see it on a Friday with a big crowd. It's sold out not just this Friday, next Friday also. I know, Rob, you have tickets for 7 a.m. But my God,
only tickets I could get 7 a.m.
Wow.
You remember last night when he rode the sandworm, the whole audience clapped.
Yeah.
It is a theater. It's a film made for the theater.
Oh my God.
Definitely. Definitely.
I'm gonna cry when it leaves. And what Ghostbusters or Godzilla and Kong is gonna take over.
Oh, God. Why do they? I hope they keep it in IMAX for a long time. But the thing is, it's based on the financial success. This could lead to sci-fi for adults being made.
I hope so.
Rob, you mentioned in a tweet you were saying that like, why couldn't you do a Star Trek movie on this level?
Well, in terms of that, especially if you look at not to make this about Star Trek bashing, but you look at the trailer for Discovery Season 5, and it's so far removed from the sort of allegorical intellectual inquiry that Star Trek was known for and became successful on. And I think if this movie works, if it's successful, I mean, I don't know how many filmmakers can bring this kind of thing to life. There's not many. But I would rather have studio executives looking for these kinds of projects than getting Fast and the Furious 11. You know what I mean?
Hey, that's a part two.
Right. And now it's called G, Fast and the Furious G or whatever it is. But I mean, can you imagine if we live in a world where this is what Hollywood is aspiring to be? And, I made a point. I was talking to I sent an email to a very successful producer. And I said, that television in the 50s threatened Hollywood's dominance over entertainment. So Hollywood had to create large widescreen processes like VistaVision and Panavision, and we got Cinerama. And if this movie is financially successful, it proves, along with Avatar, what Cameron's doing with Avatar, that audiences are there for thought-provoking, original, erudite, upscale, idea-driven science fiction films that are also cinematic spectacles. And maybe this is what's going to bring, and in IMAX, and maybe this is what's going to bring audiences away from their narcissistic navel-gazing TikTok videos and get outside themselves and maybe learn something for a minute. And I can see the young people. They might not have caught up with Dune Part 1, but seeing this, and maybe it'll start a revolution in people, I don't know, reading books. And just like Harry Potter got people reading, maybe this movie will get people, first of all, picking up Herbert's novels. And I think by the time they get to God Emperor, their minds are going to be blown. And then they're going to look into the entire Western canon of science fiction.
Someone should make God Emperor, but only with AI.
There's something also remember.
No. We need James McAvoy from the series, the sci-fi Dune series, to come back and play God Emperor.
Right?
You know,
You could do it.
Well, we've also got, and I just want to point out, we have the 3-Body Problem is coming out on Netflix. Now, I know it's Weiss and Benioff, but if it's good, having that 1-2 punch of Dune and the 3-Body Problem at the same time could really put the focus back on literary science fiction.
And then you got Zack Snyder's follow-up to Rebel Moon, whatever that'll be. Two more quick chat comments here. One, as Beans joins, here we go. Let's full on Beans. Let's see.
Beautiful bean footage.
Pete Thinker asks, I'd like to ask about the soundtrack. I still prefer the Toto one myself. What does the panel think? The chat think? What do you think? I love both. You can love both.
Love them both.
It's completely. I have the expanded and the original soundtrack of Toto, and I love that one, but it's a completely different.
Oh, I didn't know there was an expanded Toto soundtrack.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh, that's great. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Hans
soundtrack?
Zimmer. Yeah, Hans Zimmer is really. I don't know. He's very creative. Different than most composers. I mean, he did Interstellar, right? I believe.
Correct.
So that is a fantastic score.
Iconic.
It is
Iconic.
And this one, like I said earlier, it's hard because I watched it as a guy who just looking at from the perspective of knowing what's going to happen and then making like decisions on whether or not I like the adaptation. It's hard. Some people are very in tune with the music right away, and I think it's how your brain is wired. I don't know about you guys.
I didn't notice it as much in like the first film. I really noticed the soundtrack, but in the second one, I didn't notice it as much this time around. But again, like you were saying, I'd love to go see it again and be able to just see it and enjoy it. And not have
it was a perfect balance of soundtrack and sound design, though.
Yeah.
It was great. You didn't know where one began.
There was one tiny little thing that I really liked where they have their little binoculars, but they're called I think lenses or something in the book. And like whenever they it changed and it blinked, it would have like a little oily sound. It was just
yeah.
I was like, ooh, that's good.
There were all little mechanical details throughout, which was great, which reminded me of like the original Star Wars. There's a dirtiness to it.
Well, you know what?
A tactile.
You know what? This is PG-13, so there wasn't a lot of gore. And because of that, I think the Lynch version has a lot of gritty, grimy, disgusting things, like sound designs, and then just visual effects. But this was like borderline rated R, honestly. It was pretty close.
Too.
Yeah,
I liked it, especially Fade, Ralpha.
Yeah, and the women right around Fade.
Yeah,
his cannibal girlfriends were so cool. I wanted to know more. I was like, yes, these cannibal girlfriends. They're not in the book. I loved it.
Yeah, that was new, right? Yeah.
Quick question here from Bush and Ryu Cat for 10. Chris, I hope you saw my tweet to you on Sunday. I was the only person in the theater who bought the Dune tin. Yeah, we all loved Austin Butler's Fade, but I must give credit to the cinematographer. 9 out of 10. Well, thank you, Bush and Ryu Cat. I will check my @ on Twitter and appreciate the support. All right. I have a little treat. Another thing to show, which is somebody here got to talk to some of the cast. Here it is from Hollywood. I don't know if hopefully I won't get copyright struck.
I know people. I think you're okay.
Okay. Well, let's see if we can. You got to.
I'm here.
Record it.
It's been a while since you've had one of those nightmares. Tell me, what was it about?
It's only fragments.
I did get easier the second time around? Did they find ways to make the makeup process a little bit faster, or were you just mentally prepared knowing that what you were going to have to go through?
No, they didn't make it easier on me, but I wasn't naked that much, because then I had to do full body makeup, so that took 8 hours. So we got away with, they were faster too, so we got away with 6 hours in makeup. But it was the same. I don't want to do part 3.
Well, he doesn't have to.
No.
I'll put the link in the description.
You never know.
Yeah, that's true.
Check out your interviews. Good job, Kira. That's great.
Yeah, great job, Kira. Very good.
All right. Final thoughts, everybody, on this. Look, we're going to be talking about Dune for the next couple weeks. I agree with Elaine, Nerd Cookies. It's so hard to process having only seen it once.
Yeah.
Jeffrey, here's Jeffrey is back. Let me add you. Let's see. Sorry, Alan. Jeffrey's back, but it's so hard.
Sorry about
I remember
that.
no problem, Jeff. So when we saw the movie first, it was like I didn't even know. Like I was so blown away, and there were things that were irksome, like the final shot of the movie, that I needed time to process it. I've seen it twice, and I still feel like I need to see it again. And it's also a thing that, like, you don't know if something really, you can say, a lot of people are saying masterpiece, it's a classic, whatever. I don't know. In 5 years, I think it definitely would be on the list, but you don't know. Like, does a movie stand the test of time? So I think we're going to be talking about this for the next, several weeks at least. But any final thoughts? And everyone, with the exception of myself and Alan, everyone here has only seen it once. So obviously everyone's going to go see it again, probably this weekend. Any final thoughts or hopes or even speculation about what, part 3 will be? So,
I'm very
originally, did you know that originally part 2 was supposed to have a different title?
No.
It was going to be Dune Part 2 Prophet, Prophet.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
It was originally going to be a 3-part series, and it was Dune, Dune Prophet, and Dune Messiah was what it was going to be done originally.
And they changed it. Part 2 is just part 2.
Right.
So whatever.
That's better. That's like Kill Bill Volume 1 and Volume 2. It's just like I like it better. I like it.
It's fine, but
because it is a part 1 and part 2. It's like
it is.
It's you should watch them together.
I like part 1, part 2 because this is the Dune novel. This is the original Dune novel, and the book was just called Dune. So I like that it doesn't have something called like Prophet or something.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I honestly, I think that this movie was a perfect blend of thought-provoking and popcorn flick at the same time. I really hope it does well in the box office, mainly because I want them to make another one, but also I just hope that this sparks something new in Hollywood where it's like, hey, guess what? You can make I almost cursed. You can make a good, you can make a good film that's thought-provoking and fun and make people feel something, and it could still make a lot of money. I just want this to be the tone of Hollywood going forward.
No matter, all my nitpicks and issues aside and all my problems aside, I'm very happy with how the movie came out, and altogether it exceeded my expectations of what they were able to do in bringing the book to life, and I hope the franchise will continue. But I do have concerns for what they will be doing with Messiah, because it definitely feels like they've taken it in a direction where I don't know how they get back on track, but maybe they have something planned where they can figure it out. But I'm just sort of like the feeling I get when I read the end of the first novel. I'm hopeful and optimistic, but we shall see.
Well, also the changes with Chaney, whatever. It affects the third film a lot. The other thing, the big change we didn't even talk about, which is already being trumped up as some controversy. Aaliyah. We're talking spoilers. the way that Aaliyah was, we need to talk about Aaliyah.
Yeah.
Some people are even saying that this might be sort of a pro-life messaging kind of woven into the film. I know.
I think they're thinking too hard.
Yeah, they're thinking too hard. They're just
Yeah,
trying
I
to
think
push
they're
it and get out of here.
The 5-second cameo that is,
Anya Taylor-Joy.
yeah, that is Anya Taylor-Joy.
Well,
Who, no spoilers, she showed up to the premiere, so people know that she's in the movie.
But it was interesting that they kept that a secret right up until she was at the premiere, and then it's like, oh, she's in the film. But like this whole way of dealing with Aaliyah takes the events of Dune Part 2, and originally in the book, it was almost 3 years or about a 3-year span.
Yeah.
And not only is Aaliyah born, but also Paul and Cheney have a child, and it gets killed. And that's a motivation even for more revenge on Paul's side, which I think that might have worked, whatever. All I'm saying is by condensing the timeline to 6 months instead of, because someone called it, Tom from Midnight's Edge called it Chekhov's pregnancy. If someone's pregnant in a movie, they're going to give birth in the movie. Why would you have a character that's pregnant without them giving birth? That doesn't happen in the film. So how does that affect things? And then is there going to be a time jump between Part 2 and Part 3, a time jump where we're at, maybe 15, 20 years later?
The answer to that I can tell you is yes, because I did ask Denny that question. He actually, when he wrote Dune 1 and 2, he really felt as it really was 2 parts. He kind of wrote it simultaneously and then waited for the funding and then was greenlit for Dune 2.
Right.
I asked him if he has a passion project in between, knowing that the characters will be a little bit older in Messiah. And he doesn't say it in this interview, but doing the research, he did say that he wants to wait for the actors to grow older in order to kind of, set the tone for what they're going to see in the third book. Coming from somebody who hasn't read any of the books, I found that really interesting. So, he will have a project in between. Obviously, he's going to wait to see what the box office comes back from Warner Brothers, but he's going to wait.
Wow. I actually really thought that Aaliyah was the way they portrayed it, the way the chance that Denis took was pretty amazing. Yeah. It was very intriguing for me. At the same time, what threw me off was like, how come she's not born yet? Because other people in the film aged and some didn't. Some people grew their hair, some didn't. So it just did throw me off a little bit. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, I don't mind. It's all going to be truncated within 6 months. Cool. But why is, how come we haven't seen Brolin's character and he comes back and, he looks like he's aged 10 years and his hair's long. And it just threw me off, especially I'm used to also voiceovers to help me out, narration voiceovers, that without them, I was really looking at subtle signs.
Yeah,
I think
we just had Princess Irulan just stating the year in her notations, in her dictations, and it was the same year.
Yeah,
so we just knew it was in the
10,191.
year. And within 9 months at least. So that's
it's a little short. Now, to be fair, the 3-year thing in the book, I think that's a short amount of time to train a bunch of people too. So I just think it didn't bother me that they shortened it as far as like training the warriors. They trained them as much as they could, and they had a lot of them, and they had plans. They had very strategic atomic plans. So it didn't bother me that, how are you going to train these people in 6 months? They didn't really show them advancing in their abilities.
They learned Brazilian jiu-jitsu, which is this movie's version of the Weirding Way.
Yeah.
I understand the change.
It only takes about 10 years to get a black belt. There you go.
I definitely understand from a cinematic standpoint why they would want to avoid that kind of uncanny weirdness and Twilight-esque Nightmare Baby vibes.
But I love the Nightmare Baby.
But,
that was the best part of the series.
It really was.
I just have the nitpicks about around that change, not so much Aaliyah itself, but how it affected every other events and other characters' journeys. I have nitpicks here and there.
Well,
Yeah.
like the
I
death of
love Alicia
Vladimir.
Witt as Alia.
Yes. Yeah.
I liked Paul. I liked it better in the book. Paul walking up to Harkonnen past the Emperor. Nobody says a word because they're terrified of him, and he just stabs him in the face in front of everybody. It's the most
Spoilers.
badass. Yeah, I mean, I thought that's what we were talking about. It's the most badass, like,
I actually didn't
demonstration
like
of
that.
power.
I felt like it was like a
Yeah.
meat thermometer he was sticking him.
Oh yeah.
It felt a bit
I
anticlimactic
don't
for
like-
me.
Yeah, I don't like that they replaced that with the death of Fade. I wanted him to stab Fade in the neck and the face
I almost
instead
thought
of.
the Emperor was gonna dispatch him. It almost seemed like that's where that was
That
going.
Fade fight scene though was unbelievable. Oh my god,
was.
everybody!
There was a moment where there was a moment during that fight scene where I was like, "Is Chani gonna come up behind him and slit Paul's throat and like kill Paul in the skull?" Like, I was really like wondering.
The end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I was impressed greatly with the choreography
Yeah.
of their fight. Definitely one of the highlights of that film.
Yeah.
They really brought it.
Nobody's brought up Christopher Walken.
Miscast.
I
needed cowbell.
He didn't blow me away.
But Christopher Walken plays Christopher Walken in every film.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're gonna go with it. I'm all right with this.
Well, Kira, I made a conscious decision not to be walking. I said, this is crazy. Danny, you gotta give me more.
It's wild. It's wild.
It's wild. And I showed up and I did my job. And it was
Emperor Cowbell.
He wasn't my favorite. The Harkonnens were the best, I thought, as far as the antagonists went.
This is where I want to give a shout out to the 2000 Sci-Fi Channel miniseries. Giancarlo Giannini was a very good emperor, I thought.
Yes, he was.
I feel like Ian McNeice is the closest Baron to the book from the sci-fi series. Like,
I agree.
His performance as the Baron, in my opinion, is the best one of the three.
Yeah,
Man,
I
need
agree.
more spice, and I gotta have it.
And Paul,
more spice.
my favorite line is, Paul's art is death, and he's about to paint his masterpiece. No Man on Fire reference, anybody?
Yes.
All right, everybody.
Nice spot.
I think we're gonna wrap it up here. But everyone who's seeing the movie again this weekend, I bought tickets. My seats aren't great.
Me.
I am.
Bottom yet, but I want to.
I think we're all seeing it again. Danica, you may or may not get to see it again.
I'm visiting like relatives. I'm gonna be out. I'm gonna be in the middle of nowhere. I'm not gonna have access.
And everybody's got videos dropping about this. I know Danica, you have one. Elaine, Nerd Cookies on the Nerd Cookies channel. Subscribe to everyone's channel. The links are in the description, including links to Kira Lynn's interviews with the cast of Dune Part 2, along with the Damon Packard weird video that we watched a little bit of. We got a last super chat that came in hot. Red French Moon for €2 says merci for that versus panel. And Danica is heart smiles.
Thank you, French Moon.
Hey, Chris.
There you go.
Chris,
Yeah.
I hope this movie gets people to deep dive into Denis' filmography, because I think his earliest films, you see the talent and the vision from his very first independent film. And I think someone said props goes to Greg Fraser, because he took over for Roger Deakins, right, who did the first one, for this one. And R&B, it was shot on the Arri 65, and they converted it to IMAX.
Yeah.
So it's great. A lot of great work all around.
Yeah.
So couple last things here.
This is Film Threat!
Wait,
I don't know where that came from.
Chris,
all right.
I'm confused. Was it two of you in that same scene?
Okay, so anyone else? Anything else people want to plug? Danica, your lip balm, which I'm gonna be resupplying.
Spice Melange CBD lip balm is on my store. There's also like all sorts of Dune Club merch on there as well. So lots of pens and stickers and bookmarks and all sorts of stuff. I actually did an Abomination Alia nude bookmark. You can get that for DanicaXIX.BigCartel.com.
The nude bookmark. And then anyone else stuff to plug? Rob, you're going to be live later. Nerd Cookies, you've got a video coming up, I hope.
Yes, I got Dune videos for the next. Well, I have other sci-fi and fantasy news topics that I'm
The
have in the
Expanse?
pipeline as well. Oh, The Expanse, yeah. I just started reading
Yep.
that. So, yeah, we'll see about videos on that. But I'm enjoying the first book so far immensely. I couldn't really get into the show at first, but
Same.
we'll see after I read the book.
Yeah.
But yeah, you could come visit me on YouTube, and I got quite a large Dune lore playlist if you're interested in getting those little quick bites of lore. And yeah. I think you can follow me on social media at Nerd Cookies as well. So I had a great time nerding out with you guys. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Everybody else, anyone else on plugs? Links are in the description.
Yeah, links.
Thank you, everyone. Versus is every Monday. We're probably going to continue to talk about Dune next week. I don't know if there's any other major releases, but Versus will be here every Monday to talk about all aspects of the biggest films and most interesting topics. So
Thank you, Chris.
to our mods, Lord Thoth, Mexican Iron Man. Thank you to everyone on the panel.
Yeah,
we will
thanks,
be
Everett.
back. We'll be back next week. And of course, we have Hollywood on the Rocks on Wednesday and our normal Film Threat live cast on Friday. Take care, everyone. Versus.
Bye.